The screen shows black. A red timestamp blinks 031247. The steward presses rewind with 2 quiet clicks, and the little square of night jogs backward until a thin, steady hum slides under the crackle of leaves. It is almost nothing. A breath in the microphone, maybe the camera motor, maybe the wind. But when the steward leans closer, when she turns the laptop away from the room light and cups her hand around the speakers, the sound settles into something that feels like a remembered shape, a melody that could be a tune, a lullaby, or the outline of a voice. Listen closely now, she whispers to herself. The air in the cabin tightens. Do you feel that?
Welcome. I'm Sam Nang. Find somewhere dark, put your headphones on, and lean in. Tonight's story is called Trailcam Whisper. We follow a volunteer trail steward who finds a voice where she expected only wildlife and wind, and then decides, carefully, to listen.
Her name is Mara. She volunteers at a sprawling preserve where trails spider into old logging roads and cameras hang like quiet witnesses from lichen-covered branches. Trail cams in this world are ordinary tools, motion triggers, cheap IR LEDs, batteries that die in cold. People use them to monitor deer, to count hikers, to check on erosion. Mara sorts through hundreds of clips every month. Coffee beside her laptop, a thermos cooling, a headlamp parked like a patient animal. I want you to imagine her habits, how she softens the screen, how she knows the tiny mechanical coughs of each camera model, how she folds loneliness into the task and calls it stewardship. Tonight, her job is ordinary. The stakes, for now, are only that a preserve stay monitored, a trail stay safe. Then she hears it, a hummed phrase beneath wind. Not a word exactly, more a melodic contour that repeats, like someone warming a voice in the dark. She rewinds. The clip plays again. The hum sits below the scrape of a branch, below a distant crow. She tells herself it's a radio in a far car, a tonal artifact from the camera itself. It's easier to call it technical noise than to let imagination fill in the empty places between pixels. But curiosity is a persistent thing. She marks the timestamp, flags the file, and does what audio people do. She listens one more time. Over the next week, the hum returns. Not from the same camera, but from other cameras a mile apart. Different nights, different weather. The melody, if melody is the right word, keeps the same contour. Mara begins a log. Camera IDs, timestamps, compass bearings. The locations cluster loosely around an old search area, where decades earlier a local man disappeared on a river route. No body was found. Files that once seemed like static become linked by this sound, as if a thread were sewing separate dark squares together. You start to notice patterns when you look for them, and once you notice them, they won't stop tugging at you. She brings a clip to a lab. Here is where our lens widens. Spectrograms bloom like topographical maps of sound, and what felt like a ghostly hum becomes a trace on a screen, frequencies stacked over time, harmonics that might hint at a human source. An audio forensics analyst runs the clip through source separation tools, isolating components and reducing noise. The analyst says, with professional caution, that the tonal band around 400 to 800 Hz shows structured energy not typical of wind rustle. A wildlife acoustician reminds us that environments impose their own signatures. Wind through certain trees creates tonal whistles. Some insects drum at steady frequencies. Far-off waterfalls can give a sustained hiss that looks almost musical under certain mics. And then a search and rescue archivist, paging through old appeals, pauses. He recognizes the melody as a fragment used in a decades-old missing person broadcast, a maternal-sounding lullaby excerpt, never complete, woven into a TV spot meant to anchor memory. But here's the crucial part. Each expert speaks in probabilities, not certainties. Spectrogram peaks are evidence of structure, not testimony.
correlation is not causation. The lab can show what the recording contains. It cannot speak for why those sounds are there.
Mara faces a decision that would make most of us swallow. Share this publicly and risk sending speculation and hurt into the community, or hand it over to authorities and let them manage the fallout. She thinks about families who have waited decades for answers, about volunteers who patrol these trails with dogs and stout boots, about privacy laws, and about how easy it is to misread a pattern as intent. She chooses the middle road. She contacts the preserve manager and an investigator quietly. That choice ends the easy part of the story. This is the moment where stewardship becomes responsibility, where the file stops being a curiosity and starts becoming potentially consequential for real people. The next phase tightens into a heartbeat. Together, the investigator and Mara map the timestamps to trail maps, a series of short-lived detections that form an arc toward a shuttered ranger station. She hikes the route at dusk with a small team, leaves bruise underfoot. A camera whirs softly as the wind clicks its housing. At one waypoint, Mara plays a clip out loud into the evening, just to see. The hum, if you can call it that, lands in the trees like a small promise. For a moment, everything is noise and possibility. The creak of a swing gate, the hollow of an old outhouse, the distant call of a barred owl. Then the team finds something else, an old cassette tape, weather-softened, tucked in a metal box under a bench. They do not play it there. They bag and label evidence. The sound that brought them here has braided with human objects, with history. That braided line is what moves the story from mystery to investigation. After their find, conversations multiply. Acousticians argue over the plausibility of environmental mimicry. Ethicists ask, who owns a voice captured by a passive camera in the woods? Community members worry, will a volunteer's curiosity reopen wounds? The investigator chooses discretion. The evidence is cataloged and compared against archived broadcasts. The audio forensics team publishes probabilistic notes, careful to avoid definitive claims. The preserve issues a gentle public statement that thanks volunteers and asks anyone with relevant information to contact authorities. Mara keeps working the cameras, but the way she listens has changed. Listening is no longer only about pattern, it is about consequence. And then a last clip. Not a full phrase, only a fragment. The rounded tail of a melody, like the corner of a memory that refuses to be held. It could be coincidence. It could be the layered artifacts of wind hitting different housings. It could be an echo of something human. Or it could be the world folding back on itself. Human sound, caught when no one thinks to expect it, preserved for a later ear. When you listen, you fill the gaps. That is how stories live. I will not tell you what to believe. I will tell you this. Sometimes the wild keeps more than tracks. It keeps the traces of us. If you're still here, the story has followed you to the end. Thank you for sitting in the dark with me. If this episode lingered with you, share it with someone who listens in the quiet. Subscribe so you don't miss the next night we pry open. And a final, quiet note before we go. Don't go rooting through private Trailcam folders out of curiosity. If you find something concerning, contact land managers or law enforcement. I'll put resources in the show notes. I'm Sam Nang. Until next time, check the corners.